Hello guys, this is Recapz Now here. Today, I'm going to explain an Australian science fiction film called 2067. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie is set in the future year of 2067, and the world has been damaged to an irreparable extent. The root cause of this irreparable damage is nothing but climate change. All kinds of plants have been destroyed. As a result, a shortage of oxygen in the air can be felt. The only way for people to survive now is artificial oxygen. 99% of the world has become dark and unsuitable for life. People are being suffocated to death. Amidst all this, only one city situated in Australia has survived, just due to a company called Recapz Corporation, who are the manufacturers of synthetic oxygen. However, artificial oxygen can cause a deadly disease known as the sickness over time. We learn that mankind has only a few years before it becomes extinct. The scene shifts and a man named Ethan White, who is an Australian citizen, is shown. He and his friend named Jude are employees at Recapz and work as mechanics. The company has been working around the clock to find a proper cure and save the world from the disease. We learn that Ethan's wife, Zan, also suffers from the disease. Ethan also works hard to ensure that Zan gets good quality oxygen. One day, while Ethan and Jude are working inside the tunnel, they are called up by Regina Jackson, CTO of Recapz's Particle Research Department. She introduces herself to them and opines that she fears the human race is going to die in a very short time, if the current situation did not improve. She then informs them that Ethan is the one who should save humanity. Ethan is rather confused and taken aback by the statement and rubbishes her claims. But Regina insists that he should visit the lab once. The lab is a huge one, with large and heavy types of equipment. The doctor in the lab is named Bill Mitchell, and he introduces himself to Ethan and looks at the device on Ethan's wrist for a bit. The group then tells Ethan that his father, Richard White, had started the research project 2 decades ago. They also inform him that the machine that he was seeing was a time machine called Chronicle. We learn that in the first ever experiment conducted by it, they passed radio waves through it to identify what was there at the other end of it. They found that 407 years later, the Earth would be home to a sufficient amount of vegetation for the survival of human life. The people start to believe that. If human life exists hundreds of years later, then that would mean they have found a solution to the existing problem. However, the scientists were surprised by the result, as the waves they sent had rebounded and come back. When the scientists decoded the secret message, it read, "Send Ethan White." And now, Regina and the rest of the team wanted Ethan to go into the future and get them the antidote. These claims surprise Ethan, and he does not believe them, and assumes that Regina is joking. Furthermore, he did not want to leave his wife and go to the future, so he declines the offer. Afterward, Ethan and Jade were out for dinner where they buy fresh oxygen. Jude tries to convince Ethan to go on the mission. However, Ethan laughs at him and says that he does not want to follow his father. Ethan hated his father as he was never there for him. We learn that Ethan's father went missing 20 years ago, and his mom died when he was an infant. Since then, Ethan grew up with Jude, who was like his best friend and older brother to him. He blames his father for putting his work ahead of his family and leaving them for the project, and he also says he did not want his wife behind as she was sick. But Jude manages to convince Ethan that the only way to save his wife was to find a cure. Ethan remembers his 8th birthday when he had received a strange gift box from his father. As he puts his hands into the box, a device gets stuck to his hand and it starts to bleed. Richard had placed a permanent hand device on Ethan, but even after so many years, Ethan did not know its precise use. Next at home, Ethan tells Zan what had happened that day, and she also encourages him to go on the mission. The next morning, Ethan writes, "I will find my way back to you," on a metal flower and leaves it beside Zan. Ethan then goes to Regina's office and tells her that if he could get one antidote, then that has to be first given to Zan. Regina agrees and takes him to the lab. Dr. Mitchell shows him the protective gear that he needs to wear for the mission, and before getting into the time machine. As they begin to explain the mission to him, Ethan understands that they did not have a proper plan. Neither did they know who Ethan might meet in the future world. After they put him in a suit, They give him an AI device called Archie, using which the people in the lab can keep a track of Ethan and his vitals, and help Ethan in navigation. After this, they put him inside the machine, and Ethan moves at supersonic speed and travels through time. Ethan falls from the sky and lands into an unknown wood. His suit catches fire due to friction from the air, so he gets out quickly and is amazed by the natural beauty. He notices the world was now a changed place altogether. The trees, the oxygen, all the things necessary for life were back. He follows Archie's direction and sees a special type of door. But his eyes stop at a skeleton laying there which had a bullet hole in it. What scares him even more is the name tag with the skeleton that had his name. The skeleton belonged to Ethan, and he also finds Archie. When he plays the recorded voice, a man says this is the only way and shoots Ethan. At this moment, the device shuts down. This scares Ethan. He thinks that this might happen to him. After this, he notices the skeleton's wrist device, and is surprised to see the similarities between them, as it was in all fairness an exact copy of the one. He had the only exception being the greenish light that was glowing on it. That night, he lights up a fire and eats wild berries for dinner. The berries were poisoned and Ethan starts vomiting after consuming them, and he fell unconscious. Next, we see Ethan wakes up and sees Jude sitting in front of him. It happened that the lab was monitoring Ethan's vitals, and they assumed that Ethan's body was reacting to the poison, so they sent Jude to protect Ethan. Later, Ethan and Jude discover that the skeleton was lying there. This meant that his fate remains unchanged. They take Archie's help to find another door, and a device checks Ethan's eyes, allows them inside. They are then greeted by a monitor. The device asked for Ethan's DNA sample, and as soon as he accepts it, Ethan's wrist device begins to work, which causes him to bleed. After the blood test, the device turns green. The lights come on and they understand that they were in Criminal Corp's lab, and 407 years had passed and they also had the time machine. Jude feels excited because he feels that now they have the means of going back to the past. But Ethan disagrees and says that they had not changed anything, and that he will end up dead. Ethan then checks the system database and finds his father's holographic recording, where his father says the machine was built and designed to collect oxygen in the future world and transfer it back to the past. But when his father first began his research, he got a message asking him to send his son to the future. Though he had his doubts, he went through made a DNA verification here for Ethan. Soon, Ethan and Jude understand that they cannot go back in time through the time machine, as its battery had almost run out after 407 years. Suddenly, we see a malfunction occur in the machine's nuclear power core because of the activation of the lab. There was now a chance of a nuclear explosion in only about 4 hours. This meant they had only 4 hours to find a way to repair the machine and travel back safely before the explosion. They were running out of time and had to act quickly. Outside, they found a ruined city with green plants, but one that had no habitat. It showed that the Earth was in recovery after human extinction occurred. We see human skeletons are lying everywhere. Ethan goes to his wife's house to find her bones, which breaks him to the core. Jude tries to convince Ethan to go back to the past, as the cure to the sickness does not exist in the future even. Here Ethan doubts Jude's words, and he turns on Archie, and discovers that the man who shot him and Jude's voice were similar. Jude raises his gun and points at Ethan, and denies the allegations that he had shot Ethan. Ethan finally decides to complete the mission as his top priority. We then see that they jointly succeed to repair the power core and return to the lab. Now the system was working, and they can easily go back to the past. They only needed to wait 37 minutes to accomplish the task. We learn that once the portal is launched, it will stop at 2067 for about 30 seconds. However, Ethan again finds his remains behind a door at the same place, and it seems nothing in the future had changed. Next, Ethan takes out the battery of his current Archie in search of the truth and inserts it into the old one. Using the old, Archie finds a video and understands that Jude will kill him in the future. Jude then confesses that the future cannot be changed, but he was trying to protect Ethan. Ethan does not believe him and locks his brother up inside a room and plays the holographic message from his father. The logs reveal a conversation between Regina and Ethan's father, where it is revealed that Ethan's father wanted to use the machine to help mankind. But Regina only wanted to save herself and a select few from the dying time. But whatever they planned to do required someone to travel to the future and turn on the time machine to pass living matter through time. It needed an operational link to function and stop Regina. So Ethan's father made Ethan's DNA the password. We see an angry CTO kills Ethan's father for his actions and orders Jude to kill his mother and act as Ethan's guardian, so that they could someday utilize Ethan's wristband to venture into the future. This shocks Ethan to the core, as the man he thought of as a brother turned out to be the killer of his mother and was about to kill him. He understands that he had misunderstood his father, and he was forced to give up his family. Next, we see that Ethan, knowing Regina's intentions, tries to stop the machine but is resisted by Jude. Here Jude reveals that he is ordered by Regina to make sure that Ethan travels in time to repair the power failure. He also reveals that once Ethan activates the time machine, he has to kill Ethan. But in all these years, Jude had grown an emotional bond with Ethan and felt guilty seeing his brother like a friend in the situation. So he shoots himself to death instead of Ethan out of his guilt. An enraged Ethan now vows to fulfill his father's dying wish, that is to find the cure and save mankind. He looks into the monitor and finds the first message sent by his father, and understands it was sent by himself only. So he uses coding to send the message to the past. On the other hand, in 2067, the CTO, with a bunch of her selected people, are seen waiting eagerly for the machine to be activated. But the time machine sends back several plants and a copy of the record of Ethan's father's murder. Soon after this, Ethan destroys the time machine, which destroys Regina's plans. At last, Regina is arrested on the charges of murder. The plants sent back to 2067 are then cultivated to revive the planet. Ethan's wife also gets a flower and understands his choice. Though Ethan had to stay alone in the future, he gives Jude a fitting burial and his forgiveness. He sees a butterfly that leads him to the same entrance as before, and now he notices that his future dead body had vanished. He then rushes outside to take a look and is relieved to see an eco-friendly city, contrary to the lonely and deserted one earlier. His one decision had transformed the future of the human race. Thus, the movie ends. Thank you for watching.